Alright everyone, Wednesday morning, and we're going to kind of do a part two of your questions. Going to go through a few of your questions, try and keep it as upbeat as possible with Stevie. Hello Stevie, what's on your mind today?
Do you know what? I was just thinking. I've got a lot in life, but I've not got a good VPN. Hamish, what would you recommend?
Oh, what a guy. Yes, this video is brought to you in affiliation with NordVPN. For those of you who don't know, VPN stands for Virtual Private Network. It secures your connection, protecting your personal information and online activity, especially when you're on public Wi-Fi. Very important these days. Another, for me, the main feature of a VPN is it can make your laptop or phone or iPad appear like it is in another country, meaning you can access that country's library of streaming options, including watching live sport, which I did last night for a certain game, but we'll come on to that. We have a special offer with NordVPN, getting you 74% off their 2-year plan plus 3 extra months. There's no risk with our 30-day money-back guarantee either. And we've got an exclusive link now, so you can go to nordvpn.com/CelticAM. I've always wanted to do that. The link is down there. It's also in the description, so check that out. As I say, a VPN can allow you to watch matches in other countries. I did that last night, Stevie. Watched a wee bit of Japan. A thoroughly engrossing affair, 0-0 with Saudi Arabia. And 45 minutes of my life I'll never get back. 45 minutes because I only watched the first half. I watched it because Dyson was starting, and he looked very lively. You'll, of course, have watched this, so I'm just telling you stuff you already know. But he hit the post early on. He also had a typical Dyson one-on-one where he won the ball back from a defender, ran through and goal, and then kind of lost the ball behind him and ended up scuffing it to the goalkeeper. But looking very lively, didn't score. Was replaced by Kyogo with 15 minutes to go, which I thought was interesting. And Rayo came on at that stage as well. So 0-0 for Japan. They're already through. Yang at the final 20 minutes for South Korea as they drew 1-1 with Jordan. I was going to say Katie Price there, but that's just terrible patter these days, isn't it? Okay, Stevie, birthday celebrations, are they still going on?
No, it's all done. I don't like to rip it. I think a few days there's a few days is all I need. Had a great time with family and those close to me. And obviously you weren't involved, so it made it even sweeter, mate. But no, really, really good time. Couldn't really, again, ask for more. My family and everybody were unbelievable. And really nice comments as well when I had a wee troll through a couple. I saw there was even a bear wishing happy birthday.
Really?
Hands across the divide. I'm going to assume that was a wind-up account, but nevertheless, thank you, whoever you are.
Yeah, well, yeah, they're. I guess they're watching the videos at the moment after the derby. They tend to come after they beat us, which doesn't happen very often, and then they'll go into hiding now, probably until the start of next season as we win yet more trophies. But yeah, I guess you're a unifying figure in Glasgow. So that's great stuff. The Celtic Park tour, you obviously sent the stuff in on Monday, but that was good as well. Good day.
It was great, and as a wee guy back in '96 when I was there, it was only felt like I was there for 20 minutes, half an hour, and it was stowed, wasn't very organised. So clearly, the club have cashed in on that and realised that it's good to do it in like block bookings and that. So, bit of sense there, but no, really felt as if it was worth the money really for the hour you got. As I say, having the trophy in the boardroom and starting off in the boardroom, and probably the only, I don't want to say negative, but it was only like sort of moment that I was like, really here. But in the museum part that I was mentioning too, but again, that's I don't think Celtic will ever switch on with that. I don't think they think like the majority of fans really. I'm saying majority, maybe a lot of fans don't want a museum. I wouldn't like to see it. I think it would just be great for visitors, and it's another way for them to make money. And you know how much they love to do that. But really cracking day, cracking time, and yeah, hopefully it's the last few days hope the rest of the year, is enjoyable as the last few days. Highly doubt it, but we shall see.
Yeah, the wait for the museum and the hotel goes on. Maybe one day. Just a final international note. Scotland under-21s lost 6-1 at home to Iceland yesterday in a friendly, which is a great result. Jude Bonner and Lenny Agbear started that game for Scotland. Okay, Stevie is a man who's occasionally late to things. You'll be interested in this story. Celtic and Brendan Rodgers have been hit with UEFA sanctions. This is after we were late to kick off in the second leg of our Champions League match against Bayern Munich in Munich. We've been fined €10,000, and also Brendan Rodgers has been given a suspended 1-match suspension. That's been suspended for a year during a probationary period imposed by UEFA. We've also been fined €9,000 for supporters blocking of public passageways during the first leg at Celtic Park. That's a hell of a fine for being a couple of minutes late.
That is, and if the likes of ScotRail were held to account by those governing bodies, maybe the world would run smoother. But that is an awful lot. But you run the risk of that. UEFA have always been like that, haven't they? I mean, I think there was that time. I think with UEFA when you're talking the days of 2007, was it that Ram McHenry guy? Remember him? That there was all this talk about hell coming down on Celtic. The guy that ran on and slapped Dida, for example, and there was, Celtic were meant to be made a massive example of, and UEFA, amazingly enough, were lenient. There was all this talk about closed doors for the next few seasons, and Celtic incurring record fines, but UEFA just gave us a wee slap in the wrist. So you win some and you lose some, don't you? But I think when it comes to that timekeeping, and bear in mind when it's like TV involved and everything, it's just ramped up, isn't it? So the main thing is, I'm sure Celtic have got the money to pay it, but it's one of the ones that, and behind the scenes, I'm sure they'll be pretty mortified at, really, because it is ultimately avoidable.
At least UEFA focusing on the important things here, racism, all that stuff. Nah, you're a few minutes late. Let's really hammer the clubs for the things that really matter. Anyway, a few of your questions. As I say, I asked for these 2 or 3 days after a derby loss, so I was probably expecting a fair amount of a kind of negative slant, pessimistic slant on these. So, we'll do our best to keep it positive today, Stevie. We've got Hail Paradise saying, I love the likes of Johnston, CCV, Hatate, etc. But have they been there that long now that they're going a bit stale? I'm not saying bin them, but we know what happens when you keep players too long. Brackets COVID season. I think the summer window is massive. KT will be amazing to have back, and I think Lennon Miller is a must-buy too. He could be the long-term Calmac replacement. Need another striker and then see who goes. I think we could do it with a strong centre-half too. Yeah, have some players been at Celtic too long? I think with Johnson and Carter-Vickers, it's a bit harsh, because I think they've both had really good seasons. And to be honest, throughout their Celtic career have both been great for us. They just had really bad performances in the derby, Johnson especially. Hatate, potentially, you could say, maybe been kept a little bit too long. I'm trying to think who else you would apply that to in the squad, and Hatate's probably about it.
It's, as you say, a direct response to the terrible resulting performance of the week, because you flip that and look at Maeda. He's been at Celtic now for 3 seasons. Would you turn around and say he's been here too long? Not a chance, you know what I mean? It's all down to players and their general performances. But CCV, I would say, well, he's one of the best defenders I've seen at the club. He has had, by his standards, a really poor season. Been very stop-start, and I can't think of a lot of games that, in the past, CCV for me, most games is at least a 7 out of 10. But this season, I think he's had more. I mean, usually you can always count, in one hand how many bad performances he's had over the course of a season. You're never going to get more than 5 ever, but with CCV, I'd say he's had more than that this season. And obviously AJ had a Hall of Shamer on Sunday too. But if we beat Rangers, for example, right, Hamish, and AJ set up a goal, or CCV, it's a clean sheet and CCV even nods a winner or something, that's not getting brought up, and it's a case of we need to tie these guys down forever. So I'm not. But on the flip side to that, again, I will also say that I read this somewhere that, you know, players really realistically should always be replacing and rotating players every 18 months, which I think is a fair enough comment, but Celtic don't have a conveyor belt of talent, and I think their scouting network is questionable. Really, I think we can admit that. So we've not got a great amount of talent coming through the Lennoxtown, and as I say, the scouting system and the setup of the club. I won't. Again, we're going to have to really see a big summer from those in that team, really. But you know, it's fair to say that we have been let down in that department in the past. So again, it's easy to turn around and say players should be rotated every 18 months, and you've always got to sell players at their absolute peak, which I think CCV is now past that. There's no doubt about it. And maybe Hatate too. I don't think we're going to get the value for them that we maybe would have a season or two ago. But at the same time, it's one of the ones that I do feel that question's coming in after a bad defeat, really, and certain players didn't turn up. And it's one of the ones where if we did get a derby win, I don't think that's mentioned. But I think it is still legitimate. I don't think players should ever be too comfortable in their surroundings. At the same time, you can't really say that, though, because they are going to go into... They've already helped us win one trophy already this season. They probably are going to get another. Hopefully they get a third. But I would still... My big thing on it is, have certain players improved this season? You know, after we got them in, and with Hatate, for example, I don't think he has. He's shown in flashes and spells this season he's been great. And I think his fitness has definitely been excellent and improved. But overall, I would say Hatate, like his game compared to that second season under Ange, where he was completely unplayable every week. You know, that's very noticeable for me. So, it's Celtic just aren't in a position, unfortunately, and they should be for a so-called elite club to be selling their best players and bring in just as proven quality, really. But there's been a lot of laziness in that regard, really.
It's difficult because as fans, like, we don't want our players to be sold every summer. And I mean, this summer, for example, potentially we'll lose one big star, but you don't want us to lose any more than that, because you feel that, you know, if you're rebuilding, replacing your best stars every summer, it's very difficult. But then also you get comments generally that say, you know, are we holding on to players a little bit too much? So I do feel sometimes that the club can't really win. I think the ideal situation is that you do have players who stay at the club and get the club, and as I say, stay there for a number of years and drive the standards. The likes of Callum McGregor, obviously, but also non-Scottish players like Cameron Carter-Vickers and Alistair Johnson, who I personally think will stick around for a bit to come. I could be wrong. They both might want to move to a stronger league, not a bigger club, but a stronger league. But I do sense that those two might stay on. But then, yeah, I think with Hatate specifically, I think we've always just been hoping that this would be the year that he absolutely explodes, and it probably just isn't going to happen. I don't think he's been a bad player at all for us, Hatate. I think if he leaves in the summer, which I do think might happen, maybe we get something like £15 million for him. I think you look at that as still being a pretty positive sign, and a player who's come in, has really helped us, had some great games, had a few bad ones, and made us a bit of money. But I think equally you were probably hoping for a little bit more, and I think Brendan Rodgers probably felt he could be the one to bring Hatate to that top consistent level that we saw from like Matt O'Reilly, and it's possibly just not possible. So I think Hatate's the only one I would say, maybe with a bit of hindsight, you would look back and say potentially could have been moved on last summer. But I don't think he's been a total disaster for us. But I would be looking to
certainly not
potentially cash in on him this summer. But I can't think of too many other examples in the team. I know people bring up people like Anthony Ralston and think maybe we should improve on him, and he's been a bit comfy there for too long. But I think Ralston as a backup is about as good as Celtic will probably get, given that he ticks the homegrown box, and whenever he's there, you can generally rely on him to perform. Okay, Cam Fletcher. Do you think the tide will turn after next season? With the takeover incoming, players potentially leaving, and with the confidence of beating us twice in a row, potentially 3 times in a row. I think to basically paraphrase Brendan Rodgers a number of months ago. Like, Rangers are always coming. His whole time at the club, and even under Ange, it's always been Rangers been talked up. They're coming for us, and this is no different. I just think you can't underestimate Celtic, and I think as much as they've been better than us in the last couple of derbies, clearly, I just think over the course of a season, you just can't deny that this Celtic team are winners, and we find a way to win trophies, and Rangers don't, and Rangers invariably bottle it whenever they get into a good position to win a trophy. So I still feel relatively sure. I mean, this question is after next season, so we're not talking about next season. I assume we're talking about the one after. Rangers are going to win the league at some point in the future, but I don't honestly think it's soon. I think, yeah, we've been beaten in the last couple of derbies, and they've certainly looked stronger than us in those fixtures, but I mean, we're still 13 points clear of them, and I don't think there's any guarantees Rangers are suddenly going to be ultra consistent next year. I think you're still going to see the same consistency issues with them, and Celtic before the league was basically won this year were ultra consistent. It's only really since we've been 13, 16 points clear that we've started throwing daft points away. Hibs, etc., Dundee. So I feel all right. I know there's always a fear of Rangers coming and getting us, and I guess that's increased by them beating us a couple of times recently, but I'm not saying it's going to be as comfortable next season or the year after, but I still just back this Celtic squad with Brendan Rodgers and Callum McGregor to do more than enough to win the league, even if it's a bit closer.
I think Celtic just have to worry about themselves. Like, we've heard the outside noise about Rangers' investment and takeover, and how, you know, they're on the up after getting to the quarter-final and beating us, and fine, but Celtic are still in a very strong position. You know, we're not where we were when I was growing up in the 90s, where a win over Rangers was just like a consolation more than anything. Then the next summer, they would go out, spend a fortune, and kill our season by October, November. Like, we're not there anymore. We do have the finances to improve, and maybe, like, the last few games, will be a kick up the backside for us, and maybe, you know, again, some players might actually be questioned. They're maybe not as good as they think they are, and that's fine. And the manager will want to upgrade, so I hope he does. But the main thing is Celtic just have to focus on themselves, and that's it. And, you know, we do that, it will be fine. We can't go into next season thinking what if and talking about Rangers takeover. I think that'll be the last thing on, like, the Celtic manager's mind as well. Like, he won't be thinking of any of that. It'll be about what we can do, what position we're in, and we are in a healthy position, you know, to move forward. And I think we can. Like, I'm not, apart from maybe the wee dip in performances, like, I've seen this season primarily, like, maybe after the Bayern result, like, it's not been alarming. It's been understandable. It's like the 06-07. Like, remember when we get knocked out of Milan? It was heroic. The players were praised for, like, punching above their weight, getting to such a stage and just missing out, getting to the quarterfinals, just by that amount. And then the rest of the season was a bit of a slog. So I get it here. It could be the same thing happening again. Hopefully Saturday there's a real improved performance and it blows that theory out of the water. But one thing I will say is, like, I remember 95, 96 Celtic, I think we didn't beat Rangers that season, but we drew with them a couple of times, and we were within like 3 or 4 points of winning the league. It got it down to the last day, but there was all this talk among Celtic fans, like my friends at the time, saying, you know, Rangers have had they've had their 3 runs at it. This is Celtic back again. Took them down to the last day, and you know, we got a couple of draws against them, ran them close, and then Rangers just completely sunk us that summer by getting out and spending a fortune. Celtic typically didn't, and again, Rangers were in just really, really strong position and ran over the top of us. So yeah, put our season pretty much out of sight by, like, I think November or December, and there's every chance we could do that again next season. We just have to be really smart about it, and there's people in positions way higher up than myself and you, Hamish. I know it's hard to believe, but it's true, and they will already hopefully be planning for that.
This is their Rangers time of the year, isn't it? What are we in? March, April, May, and I don't mean that in terms of winning trophies. This is the time of the year when Rangers start playing well, when the pressure is all off and they can't win any domestic trophies, so they finish the league strongly. We've all seen this cycle. Manager is a genius oh, we're getting closer to them, etc. And then at the start of next season, when it really kind of starts to matter again, we'll probably start the league well. So I'm not particularly concerned about a lot of that. I think Celtic react to these things pretty well. This is a good Celtic team as well. Like, we shouldn't forget that just because a couple of derbies, how good this season in the main has been. And Champions League campaign, pretty good. Some really good results in there. Not least the last match we played in that tournament in Munich. So yeah, I think that's a good Celtic team. As you say, Stevie, we just needed a bit of a wake-up call. Hopefully now we finish the season strongly, win the treble, ideally beat them at Ibrox as well, and we'll all be very happy. Okay, Goody 2 views. Right, we need to offer a bit of therapy here, I think, Stevie. I'm uneasy with all this leagues in the bag chat. Every team will be looking at how Rangers beat us twice and now trying to play some version of that pressing game. Am I just rattled, and is the league in the bag? We're going to win the league. I think we're pretty confident in saying that. I mean, we're 13 points clear, 8 games to go. I do think Saturday's a bit of a settler. If you beat Hearts, then everyone feels very good about that. If you don't beat Hearts on Saturday, then maybe a few more doubts come in. But yeah, we're going to be fine. We're going to win the league, certainly. Goody 2 views. If other teams play like Rangers, I'm kind of not fussed about that, because I guess it gives us more of an opportunity to play against teams like that and maybe perfect our game and improve our game ahead of the next derby. You're like the biggest worrier ever when it comes to Celtic, Stevie. Do you have doubts about us winning the league?
You know, you remember me in the first season under Ange, we went 7-0 up against St Johnstone, 9 points clear, I believe 6 or 5 games to go, perhaps. I think it was maybe 5 games to go. It was right before the split. And even I was worrying, thinking, look, there's a lot of these players that are in uncharted territory here. Do they have the bottle to see these games out? So I was worrying back then. But even for myself, I've learned from that. I think these players have already proven that they are winners. You know, it's not their first rodeo. They've already won a double last season. And again, some of it was in really challenging circumstances. A lot of these same players there, where they had to prove a lot of people wrong, prove a lot of doubters wrong. In Rangers, were we up here at one point in February, where we drew 1-1 with Kelly. I think they beat Hearts maybe the day before it, or maybe it was the week later they went top, you know what I mean? But there was a period that Celtic team last season were unfancied, and people were writing them off, and they stormed back to show them, well, if you're going to doubt us, here's what we can do. I don't think they'll take the eye off the ball here. In a way, I actually think last Sunday's defeat will spur them on Saturday. I think they'll be really ready to go, and I think they'll have a point to prove. And you know what? That's 3 wins basically, and we've got the title. You beat Hearts on Saturday, and then realistically get 6 points against St Johnstone away, the worst side in the league by far. Then you've got Kilmarnock at home, and I'm not saying that again being sneering. It's just facts, Celtic are in a ridiculously strong position, and see, I'm no one for advocating the betting and the bookies and all that, right? But even if you go to a bookie and throw money at that, for example, even they would refuse to take your money, going, look, there's nothing in this for you. So I don't think you've got anything to worry about there, really, and that's coming from me.
Yeah, I think 4 wins to win the title, but if you win your next 3 before the split, your worst case scenario, 13 clear with 15 points remaining. And I mean, we know what Rangers are like. There's a fair chance that they end up dropping points. I think they've got, is it Dundee this weekend? And I think they've got I
think they'll beat them.
Hibs coming up in Aberdeen away. So there's a fair chance they drop points in there somewhere. Okay, last couple of questions. Lost in BKK 555. Does Celtic have a plan to win the Champions League? I'm not saying it's going to happen, but do they have a plan to make it possible? Yes, we bring in young players, develop them and sell them for a profit, but is the club truly moving forward? The fans don't want the other side of the city to be the benchmark. We want our performances in Europe to set the standard. Maybe then players and coaches from other teams will stop talking about bygone days when Celtic were a force and how great the atmosphere is, while ignoring the lack of quality on the pitch. I think Europe was really good this season, and I struggle a wee bit with the kind of recent rhetoric about Rangers outshining us in Europe again. Like, I don't know, I guess that's because they are still in the Europa League and we've been out for a couple of weeks, but to state something very obvious, Celtic were playing in the Champions League, Rangers were in the Europa League. Celtic were playing against the best teams in Europe, and we acquitted ourselves really well. We, I think, just lost 2 games out of 8 in the league phase. We drew one of the top teams in Europe in the first knockout round, Bayern Munich, and we ran them incredibly close. We were 30 seconds away from taking that to extra time. It was an immense improvement from Celtic in the Champions League this year from what we've seen in recent years. And as I repeat, that's against the top level of opposition. If Celtic were playing in the Europa League, they'd be in the quarter-final right now. Confidently say that because, as I say, we acquitted ourselves so well in the Champions League. The Europa League is a lower level than the Champions League. We would have been absolutely fine. I just think generally about the point, do we have a plan to win the Champions League? Probably not. I don't think anyone inside the club actually believes we're going to win the Champions League. I think they should, because I think that's how the club should feel. But every time you hear Brendan Rodgers speaking about it, he kind of plays down our chances generally in the tournament and plays up how difficult it is for clubs like us to compete. And I don't know, I guess it's realistic from the manager, but when I was listening to him ahead of like the Dortmund game, Bayern Munich and all of that, and Villa, it does deflate me slightly. I think when the previous manager, Ange Postecoglou, was kind of like, yeah, go and dream, that's what being a football fan is about. And Brendan Rodgers does kind of quash that a little bit. But I guess that's only in his press conferences. On the pitch, apart from Dortmund, we did compete with every team pretty much. I don't think you can fault Celtic in Europe this season. I thought it was a really good campaign. I don't know if, as I say, Rangers still being in Europe just is on people's minds. I guess in previous years you could say that kind of thing, but I think we're going the right way in Europe.
I think to answer that question about Celtic ever planning to win the Champions Leagues, I know it's never going to happen again. We're not at that level, we never will be, and we're restricted by...
Should we have a plan to win it though?
But the plan involves not playing in Scotland for a start. I mean, you look at it's the fans that basically fund the club and the majority of the transfers with that season ticket money and merchandise. I mean, what we get for TV and everything, for example, like you look at even clubs in Holland and for what they get for the TV deals now, totally, it just engulfs anything in Scotland. So there's teams like Feyenoord and PSV, although they probably won't win it, they're in a far better position to ever do it, and they can maybe slightly think about it for a start. That the basis of it is the fact that the TV deals again mean they can attract far better players and pay top dollar for it. Celtic will never be in a position to do it, and you know what? I'm actually going to disagree with you here, Hamish, in terms of you were saying Ange Postecoglou, how he got you up for Champions League games, whereas Brendan maybe puts a bit of a downer on it. I think Brendan's been realistic, and I'd rather hear that from a manager, because Ange got me up for it only to let me down time and time again because of the fact that he was just refusing to adapt in game, and we're getting hammered in the Champions League, and it really, really annoyed me.
I agree with that on the pitch, mate. Like, I definitely agree. There is no doubt Brendan Rodgers has done more for Celtic in this Champions League campaign than Ange managed. I just think in the lead up to games, it's not a huge issue for me, because what matters on the pitch, what happens on the pitch is what matters to me more than press conferences. I think you'd agree with that, but yeah, I don't know. I quite like dreaming, and sometimes I just feel it's like a wee bit like Brendan Rodgers, a bit like, yeah, we can't really compete with these teams. But as I say, he's on the pitch, you can't fault it.
Whereas if it was to turn around and say, yeah, we can compete and we can go far, then people would just slate him for that. So I can't blame him for that one at all. But in answer to the question, yeah, I don't think Celtic will ever think too far ahead like that. I think realistically Celtic will, and again, I'm not getting on at the club, because you look at some teams like even Benfica and Sporting Lisbon didn't even get into the knockouts, didn't they not? Sporting Lisbon, or did they actually?
Yeah, Sporting Lisbon finished 23rd, Stevie, so they just creeped in 11 points.
Right, okay, well, clearly I know what I'm talking about, but look, listen, in answer to that question, I don't think the Celtic hierarchy will ever consider what it's going to be like to ever win another Champions League. I think we've seen that in 67, and in my lifetime it will never happen again.
Yeah, as I say, I guess the question was about should we have a plan in place for it, and the person asking it was even saying, it's obviously not going to happen, but loss in BKK it was do Celtic have a plan to win the Champions League? And I guess it's about the player trading model and all of that kind of stuff. And I do think you've seen improvement in Europe, so I feel quite good about Europe next year. I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, the big difference next year is we have a qualifier, and summer qualifiers are always difficult because you just never know how they're going to go, and they're going to be against decent teams. This isn't going to be walkovers, but it's matches that you definitely should fancy as well.
What players they're going to be recruited, and what players will be out as well. That's what I worry about.
Do you think we're going to sign players before a qualifier? Have you not heard the old classic? We had to wait and see what tournament we're going to be in before we sign players.
It's very difficult to get players in summer, of course.
Well, Tierney's going to be in. We know that for sure. So that's good. Okay, last couple of questions. Well, they're both on the same thing. Shane McGregor asking one about Lennon Miller. Ryan Selt also, just read Ryan Selt's out saying, just wondering what your thoughts are on us signing Lennon Miller. Is this a good idea, or do you think Rio will stick around for another season? And by that time, Lennon no doubt has moved on. Could it be a missed opportunity not signing him if Rio decides to leave next season? Kind of covered the Hatate stuff. I think Hatate will probably move on in the summer. 3.5 years he's been at the club. I think is he like 27, Rio? I think he's probably going to want to play in a better league. I think he's probably wanted to for a fair amount of time. Lennon Miller, for me, is a player we should sign.
Yes.
I've spoken about that in the past. I think you have as well. And hopefully we do.
Yeah, like him. I mean, 18-year-old, 6 assists already. And a Motherwell side that I feel are pretty poor and should be doing better in the league. I think he's only scored a couple of goals, but I think he would add to his tally if he was playing alongside better players. I like him a lot. I said it already on here when we did a video before, and it's one of the ones that I'd be bullish and stand by it, that if we did sign Lennon Miller, I'd back him 100% to be an absolute star for us. I think he's got it all. He's not got it all, obviously, but I think he's got the potential to. And I genuinely think it's the fact that he plays without any fear. I think he's quick, really, really strong too. And he's got some eye for an assist from when I've been watching Sports Scene. Honestly, brilliant player. And I'm surprised that we're in the run for him, because I genuinely felt that he would do a Lewis Ferguson and go abroad. I thought that would have been his number one priority. But if Celtic have a realistic chance of signing the guy, go for it, because I think he's going to be an absolute star in the next 3-4 years. In fact, I remember there was all the chat about Lewis Ferguson when Celtic were maybe linked, there was a chance, and an outside chance of it, because it was always Rangers really were linked heavily more with Lewis Ferguson. But I remember the chat around him at the time when Celtic were, there was some talk about it, and it was a bit of snobbery saying, oh no, he's not good enough, and he'd just be warming the bench here, and look at how well he's done for himself abroad. And he arguably one of Scotland's better players in the national team as well. So I don't know what Clark was thinking about not playing him on Sunday, but that's another story. And I know, let's just keep this to Celtic, but I think that'll be he'll have a similar sort of rise as Lewis Ferguson, in my opinion. And you know what? If I'm wrong, there's always this video to clip and come back to if I am. But I think he'll be an absolute star, Hamish.
I think he's even more hyped than Lewis Ferguson was from memory. And as we say, Ferguson has gone on to, well, he's having a great career, and he's probably going to go to an even higher level. He reminds me a bit of John McGinn in terms of hype levels. Lennon Miller, I think he's been spoken about at the same kind of time in his career and the same level as John McGinn. And John McGinn, again, has gone on to have an unbelievable career, and we missed out on him. I know that David Turnbull was hyped as well and did all right for us, but didn't quite reach the levels we wanted. But it just feels like Lennon Miller is I think he's like the next big star of Scottish football, and if we could get him in, it would be a big signing for us. So hopefully the club can do that in the summer. Before then, we've got Hearts on Saturday, potentially with Volyami Sinizalo in goals. How are you feeling about that in the game?
I'm actually looking forward to it. I think it's going to be the last league game. It's a 3:00 kickoff as well, potentially, at Celtic Park. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, especially after the game against Rangers. It was a real downer for everyone. I think we just got to get right back into the end of the season on a high. It's like I said after the Rangers game as well. Like, you want to really sprint over that line and not make it a slog for the rest of the season. And again, it's good opposition in Hearts as well. It will be a really tough test for us. I think Hearts has started picking up results. Get some players as well that could hurt us if we're not on form. And yeah, I think it'll be a good game. I mean, Hearts will be coming to, Hearts will be coming to try and get a result as well. Don't know if they've got the players to, play the same way as what Rangers did. Don't think they've got fit enough players, but yeah, I think Hearts as well will be a tough challenge, and they'll be dying to get a result at Celtic Park. Will be a really good game, and I'm looking forward to it. And I remember, what it's kind of reminded me of? The game last season. I think there was a wee break. We beat St Johnstone, didn't we? And then we went into a game against Livy maybe, and we went into a game against St Mirren, I think it might have been. Remember, we won 3-0, and the fans and the whole stadium were right behind the team. 0-0 at half time, but 3-0 in the second half, and it was a great display pre-game. Might have been the week after we drew actually with Rangers, and we were maybe feeling a wee bit. Half the fans were maybe feeling a wee bit annoyed at throwing away the lead at Ibrox, and another half were thinking, right, if that's the best Rangers can offer, then let's steamroller the way to the win and the title. In the next game at Celtic Park, fans were right up for it, players were right up for it, and we got the 3 points. And I'm hoping it's that way again, because we can't have any players who are passengers, because as I say, Hearts are nowhere near the mugs like they had been the last 2 times we played them earlier in the season, but I think we were 50% and we still get the win fairly easily. I think we'll have to play our best here for this one, so be a good game.
Yeah, 6th in the league at the moment. Hearts, they've certainly come on a lot from the start to the season. Still in the running for 3rd place as well, along with Hibs, Aberdeen, Dundee United, Motherwell behind them as well. So it's a big game for them. Yeah, we've beaten them relatively comfortably twice this season already, I think. But both of them from memory have been 0-0, and both have been first game back after the international break as well.
Oh, aye.
And the one at Tynecastle especially, I remember them being pretty good in the first half and us being pretty poor.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be an interesting one, because the first game back after the break's always difficult. But Celtic don't really... maybe in the past when we've been playing really well, like that one after the first break of the season, the one when Engels made his first start and scored the penalty, I think there was generally an understanding that first game back after the break, it's fine, bit of patience with the team. The team don't really have that credit in the bank at the moment. As good as this season has been, I think the last derby and how bad that performance was means that if we don't start the game well, you're going to hear a few groans around Celtic Park, mainly from your section, I would think.
Not at all.
Hopefully we start the game well, get an early goal and go on and batter them, and it just puts everyone into this great mood ahead of the rest of the season.
Ahead of the semi-final and everything coming up as well, and as I say, the chance to look, this should be the start of going on to win the league. It's got 3 big games that the players should be looking to, 9 points basically, and that does us, doesn't it, for the league title? So it should be...
No, we need four wins if Rangers keep winning.
Oh, right, okay, well, thanks for that, Hamish. Keep me right. But yeah, look, it's one of the ones where the players just have to put it right after last weekend. And do you know what? As I already said, there's not a lot of credit in the bank now after that performance last weekend. And I really hope that motivates them and they don't retreat into a shell. And they've reacted really well this season to setbacks after every game. And I expect to see the same here. And what a dear God, I pray God that none of this staff passbacks between the 2 centre-halves and the goalie returns, and that they've learned a lot from that after the Rangers game.
Okay, fingers crossed, Stevie. We've been on for like 40 minutes, so I'll let you head off and go to your bed, and we'll catch up with you maybe after the game on Saturday or something like that, but we'll certainly catch up with you soon. Thank you. Okay. Check out GigPod, everyone. What is the situation with GigPods? Is there an episode coming out?
It's meant to be, and Dan done his ankle. We were going to do a wee only here for a visit episode.
Done his ankle, so you can't do a podcast.
You have to be in person for the time we would do an only here for a visit ones though. Like we kind of have a wee bit of chat about football, and then the rest of it is things that just annoy us day to day, which, as you can imagine, a lot of things. We have to do that in person, and he can't leave the house now because his ankle's done. So other than that, feel free to look back at all the old episodes where it's hilarious with me and Rizzo, of course.
Yeah. Best wishes to GigPod's Dan, of course. Okay, Stevie, thanks everyone for watching. I'll catch up with you this time tomorrow.